you all so much for joining. Um, I'm so grateful that you're joining us for this conversation about impact evaluation of interreligious dialogue initiatives, I should say, at a time when religious difference is often used to fan the flames of violence, promote divisions all around the world. Interreligious dialogue has helped prevent and mitigate conflict and promote reconciliation and peaceful coexistence. By playing a significant role in building compassion, solidarity between religious communities, interreligious dialogue has also laid the foundation for shared action in the pursuit of peace and justice. Um, while IRD, interreligious dialogue, has played a positive role in advancing peace and justice, the field has kind of struggled from a lack of knowledge about effective approaches, and has also lacked sort of the tools and experience, as well as the evidence to understand what approaches are most effective and impactful as well. So to give you an example of this sort of dearth of evidence, a systematic evidence study that was done last year found that only 8 studies met the inclusion criteria for experimental evaluation that controlled for confounding variables around IRD. And furthermore, even within these 8 studies, these were highly heterogeneous in their interventions, which kind of made it difficult to reach conclusions about some of the effectiveness of the interventions. So to address this gap, to sort of create create organizations with experience in impact evaluation in 2020, 6 IRD organizations began quasi-experimental evaluation to not only try and understand the effectiveness and impact of their IRD initiatives, but also to sort of help support or help bridge that gap in evidence. This is where we at AFP, Alliance for Peace Building, have come in. For the past 2 years, we've had the pleasure and the privilege of supporting and accompanying IRD organizations as they are going on their monitoring, evaluation, and learning journeys. And together, we're part of a learning community where we exchange sort of challenges, best practices, lessons learned around evaluating impact of IRD initiatives. And part of this learning community is our sort of desire to share some of these challenges, best practices, lessons learned about evaluation to our colleagues in the field. So we really want to do that because we think that this is really consequential to the field, and we also want to get your input, your questions, and your comments, and also your experience in this conversation. So to help us have this conversation, I am joined by my amazing colleagues who I meet with every month. I'm going to introduce them really with like a short introduction, but I will put links to their full bio, or I'll put their full bio in the chat. But I'm first joined by Hannah Visser, who is an interfaith scholar and practitioner at VU. We are also joined by Sabine Exner-Krikorian, who is from the Eugen Bieser Foundation. We're also joined by Dr. Sarah Bernstein, who is the Executive Director of the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue. And then finally, we're joined by Maria Crespo, who is the Director of Member Support at United Religions Initiative. So we are going to be having this conversation, obviously, in English. We sort of welcome you to sort of put any questions or comments in the Q&A and the chat. And then we're going to do sort of a roundtable conversation. I'll ask a question. I'll pose a question and just go around the table to get people's reflections and thoughts. So let me first start by sort of making space for my colleagues to sort of introduce the organizations they're working for, and also to tell us a little bit about their the experiences that they had with evaluation and measurement, perhaps prior to being involved in this impact evaluation process. So I'll begin with Hannah, if that's okay, because you're first on my list, Hannah. So yeah, Hannah, if you could share a little bit about sort of who you are a little bit and the organization that you're working for, and sort of your experience with being involved in sort of an evaluation process. So over to you, Hannah.
Yeah, thank you, Sarav. And it's maybe the most complicated role that I have in the PLC to start with, because I actually have two roles in the PLC. So I'm working on this larger research project at the VU University in Amsterdam about how we can understand the impact of interfaith learning. And for this, I have really zoomed out to the entire field of interfaith learning to kind of understand what are the learning objectives, what are the learning outcomes, and the methods used to evaluate interfaith initiatives. But then I'm also zooming in on an organization that I've been involved with myself as well, which is Emuna. And Emuna is an interfaith leadership program that was founded in France. And in 2019, it also traveled to the Netherlands and Belgium. And I helped set it up in the Netherlands. But Emuna is also my case study in the research project to kind of see and understand, the impact of Emuna, evaluate the impact of Emuna. Yeah, so really quickly about Emuna, it's an interfaith leadership program, and it brings together about 20 to 30 participants who are people in leadership positions who have to deal with religious diversity. And it's a year-long program, and they come together every 2 weeks, an entire day, and they get trained in their knowledge, skills, and attitudes to be interfaith leaders in religiously diverse societies. So that's the program that I'm studying. And Emuna, because it's relatively new, the evaluation, like the quasi-experimental evaluation, really just started when the peer learning community started and when the research project started. So it's been really exciting the past few years to kind of get a grip on how to evaluate such programs. And I've learned a lot from my colleagues who are here as well. So should I hand it back to you, Sarav?
Yeah, Hannah, that sounds good. I'm just going to go around the circle. Maria, over to you. I wonder if you could introduce a little bit of your organization, who you're representing today, URI, and a little bit about reflecting a little bit about your experience with evaluations prior to perhaps getting involved in sort of this PLC and getting involved in URIs or leading URI's impact evaluation, actually. Over to
Thank
you,
you, Saurabh, and good to be with you. It has been a pleasure to work all these months in meeting and receiving feedback of the work that we are doing. URI is an organization that is comprised of over 1,100 members groups that we call cooperation circles. And we have cooperation circles in 112 countries. It is a grassroots interfaith network that cultivates peace, justice by engaging people to bring religious and cultural differences and work together for the good of their communities and the world. Cooperation circles may be very different. They may be a well-established organization of thousands members, or a small group of friends that decided to do something together for the good of all. The requirements for a cooperation circle is that it's comprised by at least 7 members of at least 3 different religions, spiritual expressions, or indigenous traditions. And they are there to collaborate and to have a shared purpose to bring good to the community. These cooperation circles engage in community actions such as conflict resolution, reconciliation, environmental sustainability, education, women's and youth programs, advocacy for human rights. All of these go with our URI purpose, that is to have a daily enduring interfaith cooperation to end religiously motivated violence and create cultures of peace, justice, and healing. And as many other interfaith organizations, URI was kind of struggling on how to measure its impact. Is there a possibility to measure the psychological transformation of the persons that are engaged in these cooperation circles? Is there a way of measuring, this is kind of prevention, so is it easy to to understand how to measure the prevention impact that URI is having in the field. For many years, we said, this is impossible, just let's do the work. And after 10 years or so, we tried the first evaluation, and it was too top-down. And in URI, top-down doesn't work. We are an interfaith grassroots organization, and the way to engage people is just go from down top, just to think together. And the participatory approach is so important in URI. So we struggled with that at the beginning. And so in 2012, we decided, let's have another try. And we went to what is basic for us, that we do have a preamble, purpose, and principles. And there's a principle 19 that says that we are committed to organizational learning and adaptation. And because this is so basic to our people, to our cooperation circles, the way that our members engaged with the P19 project was completely different. We visited the field, we went to sit with the CC, the cooperation circle members, and ask, what would be the question that you want to ask to measure your impact? How do we understand from the community what you are doing? And so it was so much participatory. It was going slowly, asking feedback, visiting the field, consulting our members, and it gave it fruits. The community engaged, and we set the base for the impact assessment that we are having now. CCs in the regions we visited helped us create the impact assessment and the questions. This project was led by Lee Cuba from the Department of Sociology in Wellesley College. And then after this P19, we engaged in an availability assessment that was led by Dr. A.C. Kadafisi Aureliana. And this availability assessment said, well, yes, the community is ready for an impact assessment. And here we are going through this 3 years impact assessment at URI. And and with a whole community that is engaged in participating. Thank you, Saurabh.
Amazing, Maria. Yeah, thank you for taking us along in that journey. It's so interesting to hear sort of the sort of evolution, and I you know, of course, you'll get a chance to share about the current experience in the following questions. So maybe I can move to Sabine. Sabine, could you tell me a little bit about EBF? Tell the audience, tell us about EBF, and what was your, maybe reflect on what was your experience with evaluation like previous to this sort of evaluation journey you're in right now.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm from the Eugen Wieser Foundation. EBF is Eugen Wieser Foundation. Eugen Wieser was a Catholic priest based in Munich, and so is our foundation. We are based in Munich, Germany. And the foundation was established in 2002 and works in two core areas, so to speak. On the one hand, the future of Christianity, and on the other hand, interreligious dialogue. And since 2005, the EBF has been conducting interreligious and intercultural dialogue as a topic that gained major relevance in a pluralistic society. And we are active in Germany, mainly in Bavaria. And in the last 5 to 7 years, we developed a new approach by combining interreligious dialogue and civic education, so democracy education. And with this approach, we wanted to remove the topic religion of the, so to speak, corner of secular privatization and the narrative of dangerousness and deficity and disappearance. And instead of this, we wanted to see religion and religious diversity as treated as legal, societal, and personal cross-cutting issues, and also resources of the real life of our target groups of teachers and students. And so we link these two approaches, interreligious learning and civic education. And we work basically with teachers and pupils in high schools, vocational schools, and secondary schools. Also with students of religion education at universities in Bavaria. And also we work with administrations, so to speak, civil servants and employees of charities, and also volunteers. And well, having an impact evaluation was a new step. We already did one little impact evaluation in a project, and we got the impact label that our project has an impact. And after this process we have with this impact evaluation, it's a total different process. It's really a learning journey, as you said, and not only filling out documents. So it's really a whole thing, and we learned really very much. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Sabine, and hope we can hear a little bit more about sort of some of the learnings that you've kind of experienced throughout this process in a little bit. But I'll move right on to Sarah. Sarah, again, same question for you. I would love for you to sort of talk a little bit about the Rossing Center, but also kind of reflect on your previous evaluation experience. Yeah, so that we can kind of set the stage for the conversation.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Sarav. Great to be with all of you here. So the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue is an interreligious peace-building organization based in Jerusalem. So working against the background of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And we do a variety we have a variety of programs, some which are more based in education and teaching people in Israel of all faiths about all faiths, at least all the faiths that are present in this bit of the world, and some dialogue programs. Overall, we're working to build both desire and capacity to create an inclusive society here in Israel. We do a mixture of shared society work and cross-border work. I think perhaps what makes us stand out in the PLC is the fact that we are situated in an area of ongoing active violent conflict, and of course this has impact on everything, and it means that since the conflict that we are faced with is not per se a religious conflict, but is a conflict between two national groups, even though there are important religious elements to the conflict, and religion is an important piece of the identity of all the groups, along with their national identity, the national conflict is dominant in our region over the interreligious work, and therefore all of our work focuses both on national identities as well as religious identities. The particular project that we decided was suitable and ripe, if you like, for an impact evaluation was our Dialogue and Identity project, which is a school twinning project bringing together 5th and 6th grade and some 7th grade students, Jewish, Christian and Muslim students. We train the teachers conduct the encounter sessions with the students. We're talking about a program with around, at this point, 1,200 students who take part each year. We work with 48 teachers. No, sorry, that's wrong. We've grown. We now have something close to 80 teachers who take part in the project each year. So you know, we've got it's a project that is carried out on a large scale, and hence we thought it was time to do an impact evaluation. In terms of our previous experience with evaluation, we always do evaluation of one sort or another for all of our programs, but of course it's very difficult to do a really substantial impact evaluation with control groups and with that's much more challenging. So this is our first attempt to conduct such a evaluation, along with our obviously we're employing an expert team from a firm called Key Impact, who've been fabulous, and we're sort of halfway through. We've done an initial evaluation of a first year, and now we're adapting that and improving that for this academic year of activities.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that introduction. Just want to sort of plug in to the audience about the Q&A. You can use the Q&A to sort of ask questions to us. We'll be happy to share any thoughts around some of these evaluations that everyone is undertaking, the learning journey, as I like to call it, are undertaking. So feel free to drop those questions in the chat. And I feel like we've lost Maria, so hopefully Maria can get back. But let me go to Hannah, if I may, with the next question. Hannah, of course, you mentioned that you have a little different role in the peer learning community, where you're sort of have an academic focus, but also you're using some of that academic work to then sort of implement an evaluation of the Emuna program. I wonder if you could talk now about your sort of the experience that you had evaluating, doing the evaluation of Emuna. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences with that process?
Yes, sure. So perhaps as an introduction, different from Sabine, Sarah, and Mariah, I'm conducting the evaluation as part of the research project myself. So I also had to think about choosing the methodologies, etc., whereas the others also collaborate with evaluation organizations. So in that sense, it has been a very methodologically challenging exercise for me. I have to say that Catherine, who is also part of the peer learning community of the Wolf Institute, has also done tremendous work on thinking about these methodologies for the evaluation of interfaith initiatives. And she focused a lot on the attitudes that are needed. So in my evaluation, in the questionnaire that I developed, I tried to focus more on the skills so that we could also have different perspectives. So to make it very concrete, at the beginning of the project, which was last year and the year before, I developed a vignette study. So there's very short cases, very concrete situations, also from the observed challenge that it's almost impossible to find kind of a universal evaluation questionnaire. So it's like leadership skills are always contextual, and the context matters, and the people you are in contact with matter in how your skills develop. So that's why we chose to formulate these very short and concrete vignettes. That was the most important part of our evaluation. So we developed those, pre-tested the vignette study, pilot tested the vignette study, and last September and October was the first time that we actually applied it in the Dutch and Belgian Emuna programs. Last June, at the end of the program, so the program goes from October to June. So last June was the second time that we applied the vignette study. And to see if there's any change that also sticks, we're going to apply it one last time in January. So the vignette study has been kind of the core element of the evaluation, but besides that, and I think that's also something that keeps coming back in our conversations about evaluation, that mixed methods is really important. So I also interviewed, I invited several participants in the vignette study also for interviews to talk about their experience in the program, to talk about if there's anything that they learned, so new knowledge, new skills, or a change in attitudes, and also to see if they could transfer what they learned into their practices as interfaith leaders. So the participants of the Emuna programs, as I said, they are people in leadership positions, but it's a very diverse group of professionals. So we have, for example, school leaders and teachers, but also, you know, people like imams and rabbis, people in other kinds of leadership positions. So I also asked them, like, is there anything that you can use in your specific context? So that's the second part of our evaluation, were the interviews. And the third part is that Dutch participants, so in the Dutch Imuna program, they keep a reflection report, and they reflect after each day of Imuna on the program, on what they experienced, on their learning insights. And I have been analyzing these reflection reports of 3 years of Imuna. And it's been a huge task because, as you can imagine, 18 days. So I think I analyzed around 400 documents of 1 to 4 pages. It was a huge task, but that's almost finished now. To kind of also see more about the processes and patterns of their learning. So not just the beginning and the end, but also what's happening in between. So these are the 3 most important steps that we've taken so far, and the result will be analyzed well in the next 6 months. So it's an exciting period ahead.
Great, Hannah. Thank you so much. And I just want to flag as well, like one of the things that you mentioned, especially about that idea of transfer, when we know when behaviors and attitudes change, how does that transfer over to the wider community, from individual level to like sort of the community level, even starting with the family and the community? How does that happen? We always talk about that in the learning community as well. So if you all have any ideas or thoughts about this, the measure of this transfer, like why does that happen, or how does that happen? How does individual change go to community change? We would love to hear from you as well. Just wanted to flag Hannah's excellent sort of thank you for bringing that up as well, because that's been a big topic of conversation ever since we gathered in our learning community. So I'm going to move it on to Maria as well. Maria, could you, just like Hannah did, could you reflect on what this evaluation journey has been like for you, for URI, especially given that, you know, URI is such a large organization of small organization, or large network of really small organization. I would love to learn about what the journey has been like for URI, with all of your emphasis on sort of participation and collaboration. So yeah, over to you, Maria.
Thank you. Sorry, I disappeared for a while, technical issues, but yes, it has been an exciting and process. We are from this impact assessment, we are just in the middle, and it was very great, amazing to work with Elite Research, that is the evaluation team that is helping us with the actual impact assessment, and how much it is difficult for us in URI to understand what URI is, because URI is, as you were saying, a very large grassroots organization. And so URI is a network, and it is a regional network, is a global network, but each cooperation circle is a project in itself and has its own purposes, has its own impact. So it is exciting and at the same time challenging to try and, first of all, understand which is the scope of this impact assessment, in fact. And we want to have many others, or take different pieces of URI to evaluate. At this time, we decided that we would evaluate the network and how we are providing what the cooperation circles need to do their work and achieve their purpose, and how we are really how are we really collaborating to create cultures of peace, justice, and healing by doing what we are doing. And even questioning us, are we doing what we say we are doing? Are we giving support to these organizations that have joined URI as an umbrella to achieve this goal?
Whoops, I think Maria might have not very stable internet right now. That's really disappointing, because I think she had really interesting things to share. So hopefully we can loop Maria back into the conversation whenever she's able to come back. So as with all of these, webinars and stuff, the internet is always an issue. So I apologize for everyone. Maybe we can move to Sabine, if that's okay. Sabine, I would love to learn more about Eugen Beezer Foundation's experience with doing this impact evaluation. What has that been like for the organization, but also for maybe perhaps for you and for some of the staff at EBF?
Yes, thank you. So for us, the impact evaluation turned out to be a team building process, so to speak, because we work since 7 years in this with projects and have different projects and with different employees. So we have changed changing board, so to speak. And now since 3-4 years, we have a group of people, like a theological team, a Jewish person, Muslim person, and a Christian person, and me also. And we now learned to communicate, to understand the different perspectives, and to create a common vision, and also cohesion in the team, and also in the foundation, to create, after all these projects we run, to do a program. So to have all the stripes together and have a program which has a vision, an aim, and is clearly defined. And this is really a identity process to see what do I do as a referent, how do I speak, how is my perspective. And this is really a great journey. It sometimes, so most of the time we are all very curious, but sometimes we are also a little bit suspicious, especially when the evaluation team came to us and asked the questions, because sometimes they don't, it's not clear, or there are sometimes evaluation is not understood as a learning process. It's more like top down, and I want to know what you do, and like controlling. And to change this approach and this perspective on evaluation was also a big challenge. It's still, but also a great chance, because I love the idea of learning, and I try to learn to convince people. That's a learning process for us all. So it's really a great chance for us.
Thank you for sharing that, Sabine. And just want to point out that that has been another sort of lesson that we have learned in the learning community as well. Evaluation as not just being this sort of thing that happens, at the end of the process, but it can be leveraged to sort of think strategically about your program. So you mentioning that you took this opportunity to sort of think about, deeply analyze the issues, the problems, and then strategically think about the vision for the organization as well. I think that has come up as well in the process. And I think one sort of common thread of lesson that we've learned is also actually, and this unfortunately maybe does not apply to Hannah quite much, but is this idea of making sure having a good team that is there to support you, who are sort of accompanying you, working on this journey, and sort of holding that space for you to sort of discover and find and explore about your own projects has, I think, also been important. So I wanted to draw that thread about, I think everyone here has really good partners that they're working with, which has been helpful. So thanks for sharing that, Sabine. And I hope I can go back to Maria. Maria, I'm sorry that you dropped off, but I wonder if you could talk about your experience. You were sort of mentioning how large and how many different perspectives there are in URI, but you were then talking about what that evaluation experience has been like for you in a large network. Yeah.
I hope that I can be more stable at this moment. So there is, as I was trying to convey, there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm in the community. The P19 kind of created a culture of monitoring and evaluation and a desire both at the field and in the regional staff community, understanding the need to assess the impact, to better understand what's the need of the community that cooperation circles are serving, and at the same time, what is the need of the cooperation circles. So basically, we, with great enthusiasm, we, with the help of Elite Research, that is the evaluation team that is helping us, we focused on networks this time, in understanding if networks are providing what the cooperation circles need, and trying to understand what these needs are in order to grow. URI is in a moment pushing to what we call URI 3.0, in which URI is developing strategies to really create cultures of peace, justice, and healing. And we need to know what else we can do to achieve that goal and to help cooperation circles achieve their goal. So there's enthusiasm and there's focus that is important, and there's something that is happening internally, trying to increase our knowledge, the connections, and the collaboration. And also there's and externally, this possibility of working with you all here and learning and exchanging and understanding what we do better, because we understand that the impact assessment we are going through at this moment, and we are in the middle of it, will not be the only evaluation that we are going to do. We are going to change focus. We are going to go micro. We are going to zoom out. And so what we need to do, what platforms we need to use, how we have to increase our capacity to measure in our systems. And and although I said it is clear that the community is engaged, how we do better, how do we have in the field enumerators of people that can measure the impact. So on there with lots of possibility of growth and understanding of our community, and saying, well, are we really creating cultures of peace, justice, and healing through the work that we are doing? So this is our excitement at the moment.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Maria. And I think a couple of interesting points that, again, these are all conversations we had in the community. So we'd love to, that's why we're so excited to share it with everyone. And I really wanted to flag this idea, especially of all of us here. I think one of the most or best practice that has happened while undergoing impact evaluation has been the fact that all of the organizations have been involved in sort of creating the evaluation questions for the evaluation together as a group. So as Maria said, all of her entire network was part of this process of determining, okay, what are the questions that we want answered from these evaluation, and working with experts, in this case, external experts, to find answers to that question, but also working with the external experts to then build sort of the capacity of the organization to answer similar questions in the future. And that's why one of the conversations has been sort of sustainability, like how is it that what we learn through this process can be institutionalized? How can, God forbid Maria leaves, has this wealth of knowledge, what happens? Like, how do we make sure that that's part of this organization's system, culture? And this is also a question I have to you, to the audience, is like, what are your best practices of how you institutionalize some of these knowledge? We very rarely get chances to undergo an impact evaluation or evaluation that is funded, etc. But how do we use that or leverage that kind of experience to then build institutional memory and knowledge? So I would love to sort of hear from you all about that as well. But yeah, moving right along to Sarah. I know Sarah also has very similar experiences, because I know you all also sort of had some of these experiences of doing this collaboratively with your staff. So I wonder if you could reflect on that a little bit, Sarah.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting process for us. I think perhaps more challenging than for some of the other organizations. One of the things that the project that we are evaluating is a project that we do in collaboration with another organization, and therefore we went through a process with our external evaluators, what they called an actor-oriented theory of change process, to identify what the changes that we hope to achieve with each level of participant and non-participant. And we did a workshop with not only staff from my organization, but of course staff from the partner organization, in order to bring that out. And that was a very valuable exercise. And I think it helped us sharpen some of our thinking and just make it more, in order to be able to measure it, you have to know what it is you're trying to measure. So that was important. But I think it's and it's raised a lot of questions for us as a team. I think it has brought out some of the differences between us and our partner organization, and that is not altogether straightforward. But you know, I actually think it's a good thing, but it's not a straightforward process. So it's sort of, it's managing not only the evaluation, an evaluation of 1,000 kids involves a lot of sort of there are a lot of moving parts in this exercise, and the fact that we're having to manage that in cooperation with another organization has added to the complications. But I think it's a very important, it's been an important process for us as an organization. I think it's how we take the learning and apply it across the organization as a whole, particularly the learning about evaluation, is challenging, because we're not going to be able to do this sort of impact evaluation the whole time. And it has raised some important questions about what we find in an impact evaluation that we were not aware of, things that have come up that we were less aware of, and how do we ensure that we do that with our other programs when we don't have these sort of resources. So it's raised a lot of questions for us as an organization. I think I'll have more to say when we come to talk about the challenges.
I mean, I pose it to you, Sarah. We'll just go around the circle and start with you, actually, because there has been a lot of challenges, and I think it's important for folks to know, while I know the sort of the team building, sort of the knowledge building of the knowledge base, the experiences that you've learned, some of building of your capacity, especially around measurement and things like that, has been really helpful. It has been, in general, helpful for your organization to be able to reflect, strategically think about what is it that you are trying to change in the world. There has been plenty of challenges. You already mentioned working with other partners, but yeah, I would love to pick your brain about if you could reflect on these a little bit more. And I particularly want to, Sarah, if I may, particularly want to ask you, especially about working with school children, right? There's a whole another layer of bureaucracy that you're dealing with there, with its ethical issues around research and stuff that you brought up, that I would really love the community to kind of hear about.
So yeah, so we've had quite a lot of challenges during this process. As you say, we're doing this research within the formal education system in Israel, which means that we have to comply with the requirements of the Ministry of Education. You're not allowed to just go in and do any survey you want to with children in schools, which is probably a very good thing, that there are standards and somebody is monitoring what sort of questions you're asking school children. But therefore, the first stage is you have to get your questionnaire approved by the Ministry of Education. And your ability to conduct interviews and focus groups with children is fairly limited, because of child safeguarding concerns. They don't want to let all sorts of outside groups in to conduct, closed meetings with relatively young children. And of course, I completely respect that. But that presents some challenges. So I think one of our issues has been the sort of changes that we talk about in the world of interreligious dialogue are fairly deep. The transformational process is quite difficult to capture in a question that is phrased in such a way that a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old child can answer it. And we've, so that's been very, very challenging. And I don't know to what extent the survey results, are they not, there has been less attitude change than we might have hoped for. Is that because the questions can't possibly capture the sort of attitude change that we're talking about, because the questions are just too superficial when they're written at the level that a 10-year-old child can read and then choose an answer? Is it that we're talking about a society that is beset with violent conflict, and indeed in April, May, towards the end of the last school year, we had another flare-up of violence within Israel. And, what does that do to our results? So is that why we saw less attitude change than we might have done? But also, we are asking ourselves deeper questions. So, for example, the survey has been conducted with pre and post, and also the children who are in the program and children in parallel classes, at least in some of the schools, who are not in the program. So one of the questions is, often the children before the program are very enthusiastic about taking part in a dialogue program, and they're full of a sort of, we're talking about 10, 11-year-old children. They have a slightly heart and balloon fantasy of we can all live together in harmony. Then they take part in the program. The Jewish and Arab children, Jewish, Christian, Muslim children meet each other. There are language difficulties because they don't all speak the language. There are tensions. It becomes real. So we've sort of burst their bubble of hearts and balloons. Well, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I don't know how to answer that question. And I think we would need much longer term evaluation and much deeper evaluation to find out. So it sort of raised questions for us of, we all in this world, we adopt the do no harm principle, but sometimes it's very difficult to know if you're doing harm. So we are now going through as an organization a whole process of reassessing the program and looking at these deep, very deep questions to which the evaluation can't quite provide us with definitive answers. So in a way, we've been through a process which raises more questions than it does provide answers.
I mean, I would like to argue that that's a sign of good research and good exploration, like, having more questions than answers. But no, I really appreciate your reflection on that, and really valid sort of things for folks in the field to consider as well, Sarah. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I think, one thing that really stood out to me, and I think this idea of what do we mean when we mean by doing no harm? I think that's a good question as well for everyone to have in mind while undergoing impact evaluation, and also pointing out sort of even though you had a very strict sort of like ethical requirement which was mandated by the government, I think this is also a good practice for anybody else doing evaluation to adhere to around data protection, around sensitivity of interviewees, and things like that. So thank you. While it's very contextually Israeli, I think it's worth everyone to know. Sorry, Sarah, you were about
Can
to
I
say.
just add one more thing?
Absolutely.
One of the things that we continue to reflect on is the school principals, the teachers, and the pupils are universally enthusiastic about the program. They all love the program and they're all convinced it's important and making a difference. We didn't really see that in the survey results. So who should we be listening to?
Right. Great reflections, and I will point out that I think this is a conversation that we've also had in the peer learning community, is like, even the folks that do join dialogue groups, right? Are they people we've already convinced? Like, don't we have to convince folks that don't want to engage as well? I know that has been a conversation as well. And what does that tell us about our dialogue projects, right? So I think that brings out that extra level of interesting dynamics. So thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah. And maybe I can move on now. Maria, I know you've dealt with similar issues, especially as with a huge amount of stakeholders. So I would love to learn more about some of the challenges that you're experiencing. And I think some of the ways that you're navigating some of these challenges have been really, really brilliant, Maria. So I wonder if you could also reflect on the ways that you've been able to navigate some of these challenges, especially when we have a large group of stakeholders that have sort of vested interest in this evaluation. You are on mute, Maria.
Thank you. So one of the things, as I told you before, one of the challenges was deciding the scope of the assessment. And I told you we decided to focus on the network and kind of examine the validity and the impact of the network on operation circles. The other thing, as you will say, was the participatory approach. From its inception in 1997, URI was created with the voice of people around the world. And we need those voices. And in fact, when we launched the survey, that was the first quantitative tool that we used this year, was every voice counts. We want to, not only in responding the survey, but also in the creation of the survey. So Edward Research had an interview with each of our 16 regional coordinators. From the findings in this interview with our staff in the field, they identified 7 themes. From those 7 themes, about 30 codes, and they created the survey to send to the cooperation circles. But in this design, how are we asking people to participate? So it was sent to different parts of URI, ask for feedback, receive the feedback, change the survey as part of the process. And so the challenge we met was to decide when and how to include voices representing all parts of URI, not only in what we hear from them in the surveys or the different research we do, but also in the designing process, in the implementation process. So this has been the challenge. And the other one challenge we met, it was many of our members live in rural areas and they have low access to internet, and some of them have basic knowledge about working online and responding. But I have to say, well, we'll see afterwards the achievements, but the participation of the community, with the support of the staff, was amazing. I can't say how much gratitude is in my heart for the way that the community responded. And again, this might be because this culture of evaluation is not starting now, but has had some years in URI. So yeah, those are the challenges we identified, and we'll be doing this until the end of next year, and probably will face other challenges, but we have to work together to overcome them.
Yeah, thank you, Maria, for sort of bringing that up as well, and that also highlights another sort of thematic conversations that we have had in the community, is around sort of this idea of participation, right? Like, just because we want everyone involved, that brings its own sets of challenges, because different people want to be involved in a different way. Will that be burdensome to people? Is that right? Is it right to make people who want to be involved burdened with additional tasks? So we and I'm sorry, our colleague Anna couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but she and her team were reflecting about the level of participation. So just because we say participatory, to what level do you want participation, right? Like, I think that was also a key sort of reflection that we had, and we were sort of critically reflecting on this idea of participation, and also participation, what then becomes burdensome. You know, a lot of times, a lot of these folks are doing work on the ground. A lot of times folks are volunteers. Is it burdensome to be like pull them in on all of this conversation, especially when, you know, there are challenges with sort of connection around internet, they're in the rural areas. Like, I think these are some sort of questions that have kind of surfaced. Again, I would love to hear if you have any thoughts or best practice, folks in the chat, in the group. But yeah, that I just wanted to highlight that idea of participation, but to what level are we critically reflecting about what participation means? Are we making that clear right at the outset? Just wanted to share that experience as well. Let me move on to Sabine. Sabine, I wonder if you could reflect on some of the challenges that you've been facing in this evaluation process.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I can go back at the very beginning of the evaluation, and the question, which evaluation partner do you choose? I think this was a challenge. It's still in my head, and we in the team are still thinking about this, because we had different experiences with different evaluation teams. And in our experience, it was sometimes these evaluation teams have like static standard approaches, and they have their ideas and they put they on you, and they don't look right and left and ask what you think. And we had one evaluation partner who did this, and it was like a consulting company, and it didn't, these people didn't understand how we think. But on the same time, these the evaluation partner or company was had their speciality in religion or churches, so they already knew the field. So that was also the reason why we chose this company or this evaluation partner. And but in the talking and in the process, you saw that they had an idea how you should research religion. They had a specific notion of religion and looking at churches and everything. And so they kind of tried to change our thought of view and point of view into their idea what we should look at and how we should solve the problems with interreligious dialogue. And so this was interesting. So because we it leads to rethink our approach and to make it clearer. So it challenged us to find the right words and to make a point and be clearer, but also leads to change the evaluation partner or looking to other parts. And the question that rose was, should the evaluation partner be close to the field or not? And we always thought yes, but then also it depends. So and this was a very ground learning for us to find an evaluator who is sensitive and open, also in the methods, in the idea of religion, and is involved and knows the field, but has no how can I say it? Has no own things in the fire. I don't know the phrase in English, but I think you know what I mean. So this was very interesting, and well, we learned a lot.
Thank you, Sabine. Yeah, and then that's yes, looking for an evaluation partner that sort of adheres to your values and then really listens to you. I think, yeah, that's definitely a lesson learned, I think, for everyone here. Let me move to Hannah. Hannah, I wonder if you could reflect on challenges. I know they've been both like academic for you, but as well as in implementing some of what you learned academically while you're looking at this field, you know, applying that to evaluating Imuna as well. So I wonder if you could reflect on some of these challenges that have surfaced through this evaluation and during our conversation in the learning community.
Yeah, definitely. So I think many of the challenges that I've been facing are also faced broader in the field of interreligious dialogue, and I also heard them coming back in the experiences and the challenges the others described. So the first one is, I think that many outcomes of interreligious dialogue initiatives are very intangible. So I interviewed one participant, and he said basically, you know, this was, I felt so inspired, I felt really connected, but it's very difficult to give a concrete example of what I'm doing differently now. So it's more this feeling and inspiration, you know, and that is something that I see coming back in many interreligious dialogue initiatives, I think, also when you zoom out and look at the broader field. The second one is how to measure. It relates to it, but very concrete, like which methods can you use? Is it even desirable to measure some of the aspects, you know? So I'm part of a research team that I'm working on in my research project, and we had a very interdisciplinary research team. So one person is a theologian, the other is a pedagogue, and the other is a psychologist, and we all have these different approaches to empirical research, and we had many discussions in our research team that have been very, very interesting about you know, is it possible to measure? How can you measure? And also conversations that have been going on in neighboring fields that are very interesting to the field of interreligious dialogue. For example, in curricular studies and educational sciences, they have huge debates about whether you can measure the outcomes of education, and if we don't, if it's possible to do justice to the things that are happening in a classroom when you try to measure them. You know, so these are very central challenges, and I feel like I've tried to, you know, using mixed methods, as I said, and developing this vignette study really bottom up by looking at the concrete situations that the coordinators of the Emuna programs described to me, that I kind of tried to overcome some of these challenges, but it's been difficult. And then one final challenge that I've been facing, and I also learned that that's something that many interreligious dialogue initiatives face, is you know, to get sufficient amount of participants to really be able to do, you know, quantitative research. So in the case of the Emuna programs, it's such a small program, and even because of COVID, it was smaller and online as well. So it's been difficult to find enough participants to really do these statements based on the quantitative results. So these are some challenges that keep coming back.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning those, Hannah. And how could I have forgotten COVID? I feel like COVID has been our reality ever since you all started doing evaluations, and I know things have had to change drastically, even because of sort of the context on your ground. So just another sort of example of sort of the realities of the world impacting some of the work that we're trying to do. Just want to flag, we have, I think, about 20 more minutes of this conversation. There are a couple of questions in the chat. I wonder if I could maybe pose these questions, because I think they're quite interesting. And I would love your reflections on this, if that's okay. So let me start with the first one, and feel free to chime in. Just unmute yourself and chime in. But I wonder if you could reflect on what has been the hardest thing about trying to do a quasi-experimental evaluation of your non-linear projects? I wonder if there are any reflections on that. Hannah, did I see you? Can I call
No, I
on?
think Emuna is quite linear, but I had to think of Mariah. Maybe the cooperation circles are ongoing, right? So
So again, one challenge was also the choice of a method that would help URI. And I think that, again, elite research has been very useful in trying to understand what's the best method. And there's a mixed method approach, because we have different, as we know, it's a large organization, and it is not linear. It is not one only project. So we use different methods to approach. And I think that we couldn't do control groups because how the communities are very big, the cooperation circles are very different, to create a sample of a cooperation circle, because the principle in URI is that each cooperation circle can develop in any area, on any scale, at any with any purpose. So it's difficult to find kind of a sample. The cooperation circles, as I said, are different in size and scope, and even the number of meetings or the projects they have is totally different. So that was a challenge for the evaluation team. And I think that by doing mixed method, we are trying to to cope with that. We have a lot of stories in URI, and you'll see in our website, and there are a lot of people saying how transformed they are to work together with other people of different religions, how they are preventing violence in their places, how they are addressing conflict drivers, but it was a challenge to find data, the quantitative research, and so we are at the moment, the survey and other efforts is just trying to have this possibility to quantify the impact of the network in the cooperation circles world. And I hope that we get that data. And at the same time, we have learned that members are responding, and that members are willing to measure their impact and let us understand how the network is helping them. So I think that that this experience has been challenging but amazing at the same time.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of surface some of the conversations, I feel like even for quasi-experimental methods, I feel like we at least some of the organizations, I know you as well, Sarah, but we also work really closely with the Adyen Foundation. They were part of this learning community. They also had to do a lot of adjusting of their treatment of control group, their incoming, outgoing cohort, compare between them, things like that, because of COVID-19, for example, and just the impact that had on school cycles, especially because our colleagues worked in schools. And I think that was the same case for other colleagues at the Faith and Belief Forum as well. So it definitely has been challenging, but I think the organizations and the teams have taken sort of creative liberties to kind of do this impact evaluation justice. And then I hope we can share that with you once all of this findings are published around how they went about doing that in the future. So I just wanted to sort of surface that as well. I don't know if you have any other reflections about that question. If not, I have there's an interesting one from my colleague Shazia that I would love your thoughts on. Shazia asks, would you do an impact evaluation of this size again on your projects? What advice would you recommend to other organizations considering a large evaluation of this type? Sarah, I know you definitely have some feelings and thoughts about this, and I would love to get your take on this.
So I'm not sure I'd do it again on 10 and 11-year-old children. But yes, I would do it. I would certainly do it again on one of our other programs. I think that the process of defining the purpose of the evaluation and of writing the TOR, the terms of reference for the evaluator, is critical. And I think that an organization needs to really think long and hard about what it has to gain, and I suppose what it has to lose from doing an impact evaluation, and to define the questions that you want to investigate very carefully and with an eye to the growth and the strategic growth of the organization. I think it's looking back, I'm not sure we chose the best project to do an impact evaluation on, and it. So you know, I think one has to look at it very long and hard in advance. And I think, as both certainly Sabine has mentioned, but I think other people have also had in the PLC have had similar experiences. The choosing of the evaluator is really key. I mean, I'm not you know, we are delighted with our evaluator, with our evaluation team, but I do think that's you know, we certainly during our process encountered some evaluation teams that Sabine that did exactly, you know, that wanted to evaluate our program according to their criteria, as opposed to evaluate our program according to our criteria. So you know, I think there are a lot of hurdles along the way, and to have help from somebody who knows what they're doing is sort of, you know, very incredibly helpful. And I think that this learning community has been very helpful to us as we go through this, and you know, that we are able to help each other and avoid some of the pitfalls.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. Really appreciate that reflection as well. I wonder if anyone had any reflections on that question from Shazia. Would love to get your thoughts as well.
Just to say that at URI, we are ready to go for more. And we understand that this is one impact assessment, and we need to do so many more. And this has become a priority for URI. As I said, there's change leadership in URI. We have a new executive director, Jerry White, who has clearly marked that impact assessment is a priority for URI. And the first hire he did was Ruben Shank, and that is among the audience, that is the director of learning and impact strategy. And so we will be developing different assessments or different evaluations of different parts of URI, and also developing the systems and whatever needed so that we can gather those stories that I was talking about, and also the data, and that we have it at hand, and that when we think of the growth of URI and the future of URI, we are able to say, we are taking this decision because we heard this from the community and this is the need. And that's why we are choosing to do this and that. So for instance, in URI, we have 14 action areas. And as I said, any cooperation circle can choose which area. And do we need to have a focus to be more impactful? Are all these action areas focusing on creating cultures of peace, justice, and healing, as we say we are doing? And this needs a lot of research and asking the community and trying to find our future, not only in what we think is the best future, but what the cooperation circles, the members say. So yes, we are there for more, and we will find other ways of measuring URI in the future and for the future.
Great. Thank you, Maria. Just wanted to point out before I hand it to Hannah or Sabine for reflection, I think a thing that you mentioned that I think also has come up quite often in our conversations has been this idea of like the utility of the evaluation, like Sarah said, like, why is it that you're doing the evaluation? That question is important as well. Also asking, what are you going to do with the results or the process of the evaluation? I think that has been an interesting, important question that has come up. Of course, Maria gave a really good example of why they did it and what are they using some of these experience for in her remarks right now, but just wanted to flag that for other folks as well. I think that has been a really crucial question for us to reflect critically about this process, just the utility and what are we doing with what we find. I think those are two important questions. Let me just, I just really want to let Hannah and Sabine reflect on that question, if that's okay.
May I start?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. We will definitely do this evaluation again, maybe not in this size. Maybe not as the programs, but in the projects again, because we already see that the results we can use again with partners or with other fundings to finally show what we do and that we have an impact, even if the impact is not that impact maybe others would think it is. So we would do it again. And also I would like to install like the evaluation in the team building and to install more time to reflect and to learn and to change and to improve our workshops, our work, and to stay in the dialogue, also in the team, because the world still changes also after our evaluation, and so to be at the heartbeat and not to oversee something. So definitely yes, again, and in small parts to install in our everyday work, and also in the future to find new fundings and partners. Definitely.
Thank you so much, Sabine. Hannah, do you have any reflections on that?
Yeah, I think it's a bit different maybe because of my two roles, but because I don't talk on behalf of the Imuna organization, but as a researcher, I would definitely conduct the project again. I think there's some very promising developments in the field, and both the fact that these interreligious dialogue organizations have been able to evaluate, as well as some other work that's happening that really, well, slowly but surely we're getting more insight into, you know, how we can formulate our learning objectives, what are the possible learning outcomes. These conversations on measurability and on, you know, evaluation tools, I think are very promising. So I think it can only get easier if we were to do it again, but I'm not sure. I hope so.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I got one question that I would love for you to reflect on. So the question is, was being in a peer learning community helpful for you in this process? Like, was that a good experience, helpful experience? I know Sarah kind of spoke on it a little bit, but I got this question, and then I wonder if we could sort of reflect on this a little bit, if that's okay. Maybe Hannah, I'll start with you.
No, yeah, it has definitely been useful. I think I said it already, but some of the challenges that we are facing are kind of universal in our field, and it has been very well informative to also hear how others approach some of these challenges. So I can only answer with a yes.
Great. Anyone else want to reflect on this?
Yeah, sort of as you know, when I was through this process of how to invite the voice of all parts of URI in the design of the survey, and have a lot of feedback from different parts, which was different, and this idea that the survey was too long and the community won't be able to do it, and I was kind of in a crucial moment, and the fact that you, Sarab, invited me to have this presentation with the peer learning community, and that I could be vulnerable and open to share my concerns or the struggles that I was facing, and that, being in the middle of all parts of URI, and at the same time communicating this to the team in lit research, it was so good for me to have a peer community and to be able to bring this and have the support, the advice, the comments of my colleagues here. I cannot be thankful enough. I deeply appreciate this team and how we are growing as a peer learning community, really supporting each other.
Thanks for that reflection, Maria. And Sabine and Sarah, I wonder if you had any reflections on this. If not, we have 5 more minutes.
Well, very shortly, I can totally agree. And I still remember when we and at the beginning, when we all thought about how to write this theory of change and what are indicators and all the learning that we had, what is an impact evaluation. And it was, I think, to see the different projects, to see in which area they work and where they are in their process, to maybe see in the future in my own process, it was really, really helpful. And also what Maria said, the openness of the partners, of the learning partners, of the learning community, it was very, very, very nice, and we were partners and colleagues and not competitors, and that was a really good vibration there.
Thank you, Sabine. Sarah? Sorry.
I will just say that my only regret is that the peer learning community didn't start a bit earlier in our process, because I think it would have really helped us if we'd been able to start with the peer learning and only 6 months in or something embark on working out what we wanted to evaluate and how we wanted to evaluate it. But it's been invaluable, so it's been extremely invaluable. It's been extremely valuable. It would have been even more valuable if we'd been able to start it even earlier. But no, absolutely, it's been very helpful, because of course, other than Hannah, who is doing the research herself and becoming a professional, most of us are not professional evaluators. So having this forum of fellow practitioners, perhaps the fact that we are all in different contexts and in no competition with each other whatsoever, helps the fact that we can really create this space where we can be open and enable real learning. So it's been very valuable.
And I remember trainings, the moment that we had this training of how to do a terms of reference, And we at URI were just creating the terms of reference, and how this team helped also to disseminate the terms of reference to be able to have the call and applications that were successful in help. So I think that the trainings that we had, the harvesting, also evaluation that we had, the trainings were useful in the process.
Well, thank you all so much. We have a couple of minutes. I just want to apologize for Mary and a couple of questions that unfortunately I don't think we can get to, but I do want to acknowledge them. Mary, maybe we can get back to you with some of these reflections, if that's okay. Similar to the anonymous attendees, I feel I sort of briefly looked at your question. I feel like we did answer some of it. I know this is sort of the issue you're bringing up is very sort of it's in our minds, and it's sort of we're thinking about that. But I feel like most of the organizations did have consultations, especially around developing evaluation questions, where they had participation of various stakeholders, including participants. So I just want to sort of acknowledge that question as well, and that's also something where we have thought about a lot in the learning community. How do you define peace? How do you measure? How to measure conflict concepts? We reflect on that all the time, and we would love to get any resources or any support on those issues, right? Like this is a learning community, so we're just as much open to learning from you all as well. Also want to acknowledge Christina, Dania's question. Hope we can get back to you in somehow. Just really appreciate you asking them, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to them, but I thought we had quite a rich conversation and wanted to let that flow. But having said that, we're at the hour past 30. I just want to say deep appreciation and thanks to you all. I know it's a lot of effort to join this, and I know I ask a lot of you, but I appreciate you making the time and space to share some of what we've learned in the learning community with the colleagues here. And thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and hope to see you at the final panel, which is going to be led by USAID, where you can learn about how you can partner with USAID. It might be a really, really good panel to sit on. Also want to highlight the expo booth that we have, which has sort of religion and peace building action guides that are super useful from our friends at USIP, Salam Institute, and the Peacemakers Network. So I hope you check that out as well. But just want to say thank you to you all. Thank you especially to Hannah, Sabine, Sarah, and Maria. I really appreciate you guys and working with you and walking alongside you. So thank you.